Colonel Jamin Bayek had never expected to be a diplomat. He was a military engineer who specialized in building things that worked under impossible conditions. Now he found himself leading the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history, traveling to the Empire's capital to coordinate the defense of civilization itself. His ship, the Terra's Promise, dropped out of fold space near the massive orbital city that served as the Empire's seat of government. As they approached, Jamin watched the reactions of the alien populations through the viewports of passing vessels. Fear, wonder, recognition. The Terra's Promise was built using fully awakened human technology. Unlike the early ships that had surprised Imperial patrols, this vessel looked like what it was, a creation of the species that had once ruled this galaxy. Its hull seemed to flow like living metal. Energy patterns danced across its surface in colors that had no names. Space itself bent gently around the ship, as if reality was making room for something that had every right to be there. "Colonel," reported his communications officer Lieutenant Yunju Park, "we're receiving thousands of transmission requests. Every news service in the Empire wants to interview us. Several species are broadcasting what appear to be religious prayers in our direction." Jamin nodded grimly. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about humanity's true nature. Archaeological teams were working around the clock, re-examining every ancient ruin with new understanding. The results confirmed what the human records had revealed. Every major advancement in galactic civilization could be traced back to remnants of humanity's lost empire. "How are the other human ships being received?" he asked. "Similar reactions. Everywhere, sir." The arrival of Captain So Young's fleet at the Corvani homeworld caused spontaneous celebrations. 3 different species have formally requested to place themselves under human protection. And, sir, several worlds are asking if they can change their names to honor humanity. As they docked at the Imperial capital, Jamin was met by Emperor Quildor himself. The alien ruler, who had commanded the loyalty of thousands of worlds, bowed deeply as Jamin stepped off his ship. "Colonel Beck," the Emperor said, "welcome home." The words hit Jamin harder than he expected. Home. This place, this massive city floating in space, was built in the same location where humanity's ancient capital had once stood. The aliens had unknowingly built their greatest achievement, on top of humanity's greatest loss. "Your Majesty," Jamin replied, "we have much work to do." The briefing took place in the Empire's largest conference chamber, with representatives from every major species connected via quantum communication. What they saw when Dr. Yunju Park presented the defensive plan left many of them speechless. "The Devourer fleet numbers in the hundreds," she explained, showing sensor readings from the approaching threat. "Each entity is approximately the size of a small moon, and possesses the ability to consume matter at the quantum level. Conventional weapons are useless against them." The holographic display showed the galaxy as a 3-dimensional map, with every star system highlighted in different colors. Humanity's plan requires converting the entire galaxy into a single weapon. Every star will become a component in a massive quantum field generator. Every planet will serve as a focusing lens. Every intelligent mind in the galaxy will become part of the targeting system. Emperor Quildor leaned forward. "What do you need from us?" "Everything," Jamin said simply. "Every ship, every space station, every piece of technology your species have developed. But more importantly, we need your people. The plan only works if every conscious mind in the galaxy participates willingly." A representative from the Helion species, Admiral Vextar, who had first detected human ships months ago, spoke up. "What you're describing sounds like it would require perfect coordination between billions of individuals across thousands of different species." "How is that possible?" Dr. Yunju smiled. "Because you're all part human." The genetic revelation that had stunned human commanders now shocked the galactic representatives. Evidence that every intelligent species carried human genetic markers, that their consciousness itself had been shaped by humanity's ancient plan, spread through the gathering like wildfire. "You're saying we're all related?" asked a delegate from the crystalline Zephyrian species. "More than that," Dr. Yunju replied. "You're all part of humanity's greatest creation. When our ancestors scattered themselves across the galaxy, they didn't just hide. They planted seeds that would grow into the civilization we see today. Every species, every culture, every scientific advance has been guided by genetic programming that humanity embedded in the galaxy itself. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Empire hadn't been built despite humanity's absence. It had been built because of humanity's plan. Meanwhile, Admiral Hyunwoo Lim coordinated the largest construction project in galactic history from his flagship, the Terra Eternal. Across the galaxy, human sleeper ships were directing the modification of entire star systems. Stars were being encased in crystalline shells that could focus their energy into coherent beams. Planets were being fitted with quantum field generators built from technology that made imperial science look primitive. Space itself was being rewired to carry information at speeds that transcended the normal limits of physics. "Admiral," reported Captain Young-Ho Kang from his position near the galactic core. "The central nexus is online. We're receiving coordination signals from 97% of participating star systems." Hyunwoo studied the tactical display that showed the galaxy's transformation. What had once been thousands of separate civilizations was becoming a single vast machine, with humanity's awakened consciousness serving as its operating system. "Status on the Devourer approach?" he asked. "They've entered the galactic outer rim. First contact with our defensive perimeter in approximately 6 hours. The perimeter wasn't made of ships or weapons. It was made of modified space itself, regions where the laws of physics had been gently adjusted to make the galaxy less appealing to creatures that fed on organized matter and energy. But the Devourers weren't fooled. They had faced this type of defense before, 12,000 years ago. They pressed forward, their dark forms absorbing the modified space as easily as they consumed everything else. "They're adapting to our outer defenses," reported Captain Young-Ho. "Just like the historical records predicted. Then it's time for the real plan," Admiral Hyunwoo said. "All stations, activate the consciousness network." Across the galaxy, every intelligent mind suddenly felt a connection unlike anything they had ever experienced. Human, alien, artificial intelligence, even the simple awareness of animals and plants joined together in a vast web of consciousness that spanned the entire galaxy. The Devourers, creatures of pure hunger that had consumed 1,000 galaxies, suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Prey that fought back as a single unified entity. Dr. Yoon-Ju Park, monitoring the network from the Imperial capital, watched in amazement as the combined consciousness of the galaxy focused on a single task. "It's working," she breathed. "Every mind in the galaxy is thinking the same thought." That thought was simple. "No, you cannot have our home." The quantum field that humanity had built around the galaxy suddenly flared to life, powered not just by the energy of billions of stars, but by the will of every conscious being who called this galaxy home. The Devourers, for the first time in their existence, stopped advancing. Their hive mind, which had overwhelmed countless civilizations, found itself facing a unified consciousness that matched their own. And for the first time, the Devourers felt something they had never experienced: doubt. Admiral Hyunwoo watched as the approaching dark shapes hesitated at the edge of the galaxy. "All vessels prepare for final phase. Colonel Bayek, are your diplomatic teams ready?" "Ready, Admiral." The final phase wasn't an attack. It was an offer. Using the same consciousness network that had unified the galaxy's defenses, humanity reached out to the Devourer hive mind with a message that had been planned for 12,000 years. "We know what you are. You are not evil. You are hungry. We offer you something better than destruction. We offer you transformation." The Devourers paused, processing this unprecedented communication. "Join with us. Become part of something greater than consumption. Help us build instead of destroy." For a moment that lasted hours, the fate of the galaxy hung in balance as ancient enemies considered an impossible proposal. Then, one by one, the Devourer entities began to change. Their dark forms became brighter, more complex. Instead of consuming the galaxy's edge, they began to contribute to it, adding their own consciousness to the vast network that humanity had created. Captain Young-Ho Kang, watching from his command post, spoke the words that would be remembered for millennia. Welcome home, everyone. The galaxy is finally complete. The age of hiding was over. The age of unity had begun. And at the center of it all, humanity had reclaimed not just their technology and their history, but their true purpose: to bring together all the scattered children of consciousness and make them into something greater than the sum of their parts. The galaxy would never be the same. The news spread through human space like wildfire. Every colony, every space station, every human settlement received the same impossible message. Your ancestors were not primitive. Come and reclaim what was always yours. Tae-Young-Oh had been an engineer on Mars colony for 15 years. He built water recyclers and fixed air scrubbers. His biggest achievement was designing a mining robot that worked 3% better than the old model. He was proud of small improvements and practical solutions. Now he stood inside a construction bay that had materialized from nothing 3 days ago. The sleeper ship that awakened near Mars was called the Eternal Forge. Unlike the others, it was not just a repository of knowledge. It was a factory. The moment it activated, it began building things that human engineers thought were impossible. The quantum fold drives are the key to everything, the ship's AI explained to Tae-Young and his team. The hologram looked like an elderly Korean man with eyes full of ancient wisdom. Your current ships push themselves through space using brute force. Our ships fold space around themselves and step from one location to another. Tae-Young stared at the blueprints floating in front of him. The technology was incredibly complex, but somehow his mind could grasp the basic concepts. It was as if the knowledge was already there, waiting to be awakened. How long would it take to build a ship using these designs? He asked. With the Eternal Forge's assistance, approximately 6 days for a vessel capable of carrying 500 people across the galaxy in a matter of hours. Tae-Young's assistant Min-Kyung Lee nearly choked on her coffee. Hours? Our fastest ships take months to reach the nearest star. Your fastest ships are like rowboats compared to what your ancestors built routinely. Work began immediately. The Eternal Forge produced materials that did not exist in any human database. Metals that were stronger than diamond but lighter than aluminum. Crystals that could store and focus energy in ways that seemed to violate physics. Computer systems that thought faster than the human brain but somehow felt alive and friendly. Meanwhile, similar scenes played out across human space. The sleeper ship near Earth began sharing medical technology that could regrow lost limbs and cure diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. The ship near Alpha Centauri revealed agricultural techniques that could feed billions using desert worlds. But it was the ship construction that caught the attention of the galaxy. Empire Intelligence Director Zixthal received reports from 40 different systems, all describing the same impossible phenomenon. Humans were building ships that their technology ratings said they could not build. Show me the specifications again, he ordered his analysts. The data made his head hurt. Human ships with power outputs that exceeded Imperial dreadnoughts. Humans, vessels that could cross the galaxy in days when it should take them years. Humans constructing fleets that looked more advanced than anything in the Empire's archives. There must be an error in our sensors, he insisted. We thought so too, sir. We sent probe ships to get visual confirmation. His aide activated a holographic display showing a human construction site near the Proxima Centauri system. Zixthal watched in horror as humans assembled a ship that was 3 kilometers long. The vessel's hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, reshaping itself as they watched. Energy readings showed power systems that the Empire's best scientists said were theoretically impossible. How many ships like this are they building? At last count, sir, 17 construction sites are active. Each site is producing vessels of similar capability. At current rates, humans will have a fleet larger than the Imperial Navy within 2 months. Zixthal felt something he had never experienced in his 3 centuries of life. Fear of a species the Empire had dismissed as harmless. The first new human ship completed construction on a Tuesday. Tae-Young-Oh stood in the command center of the vessel his team had named New Busan, surrounded by controls that responded to his thoughts as much as his touch. All systems show green, reported Min Kyung from the engineering station. Power core is stable at 12% output. 12%? Tae-young asked. What happens at full power? The ship's AI, which had grown from seeds provided by the Eternal Forge, spoke in a voice that sounded like his own grandfather. At full power, this vessel could provide energy for your entire home planet for several years. Tae-young took a deep breath. Navigation. Plot a course for the Kepler system. Let's go visit Captain Jin-ho and see how fast we can really travel. The trip should have taken 3 months using conventional human technology. The new Busan arrived in 47 minutes. Captain Jin-ho Choi watched the new ship materialize, near his position with a mixture of pride and terror. The vessel was beautiful in a way that human ships had never been. It looked organic, alive, as if it had grown rather than been built. New Busan to Harmony, came Tae-young's voice over the communication system. We're here for the reunion party. Jin-ho laughed despite his nervousness. How did the trip feel? Like stepping through a doorway. The ship just moved space around. I don't think we actually traveled at all. We just decided to be somewhere else. Dr. Yujin Nam, who had spent weeks studying the historical records, looked up from her research station. Captain, I need to show you something important. The ships we're building, they're not copies of ancient human vessels. What do you mean? These are the simple ones. According to the records, these ships were considered basic transportation by our ancestors. Their military vessels were more advanced. Jin-ho felt his mouth go dry. How much more advanced? The historical files mention ships that could destroy stars, vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and fleets that could rewrite the physical laws of entire solar systems. Before Jin-ho could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the human fleet. Every ship's AI spoke simultaneously. Alert! Imperial vessels approaching. Multiple battle groups detected. They appear to be investigating. On the main screen, Jin-ho could see the approaching Empire fleet. 50 ships, each one larger than anything humans had possessed just weeks ago. It should have been terrifying. Instead, Jin-ho found himself feeling almost sorry for them. All human vessels. This is Captain Jin-ho Choi. Take defensive positions but do not fire unless fired upon. Let's see what our new friends want to discuss. The Imperial fleet slowed as they approached, and Jin-ho could imagine their confusion. Their sensors would be screaming warnings about the power levels of the human ships. Their computers would be trying to match the human vessels against known ship classes and failing completely. Fleet Admiral Kethmos, commanding the Imperial force, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ships were not just advanced. They were beyond his understanding. His weapons officers reported that their targeting systems could not lock onto the human vessels. His engineers said the human power signatures were impossible. Open a communication channel, he ordered, his voice carefully controlled. Jin-ho's face appeared on the Imperial flagship's main screen. He looked calm, confident, and utterly unafraid of the 50 warships pointed at him. Admiral, Jin-ho said politely, is there something we can help you with? Kethmos struggled to find words. Finally he managed, we're here to investigate reports of unusual activity in this system. Jin-ho smiled. Just some humans catching up with old friends. Nothing that should concern the Empire. Those ships, Kethmos said, pointing at the display, showing the human fleet. Humans don't build ships like that. Jin-ho's smile grew wider. Admiral, there are a lot of things about humans that your Empire doesn't know. Perhaps it's time we had a longer conversation. The revelation that changed everything came on a quiet Tuesday morning aboard the Eternal Dawn. Dr. Min Seo-yoon was deep in the historical archives when she found the files that explained why humanity had chosen to disappear. The truth was so terrible that she almost deleted the data rather than share it. Captain Jin-ho, she called over the ship's communication system, her voice shaking. You need to see this immediately. And you should probably gather the other ship captains too. Within an hour, holographic images of human commanders from across the awakened fleet appeared in the Eternal Dawn's conference room. Captain So Young. Han joined from the Rising Phoenix Captain Tae Young-oh from the New Busan, and dozens of others from ships whose names were becoming legendary throughout the galaxy. "Show them," Jinho told Dr. Minseo. The screens around them displayed images that made everyone fall silent. Dark shapes moving between the stars, but these were not ships. They were things that seemed to eat light itself. Space around them, twisted and bent, stars went dim in their presence, then disappeared entirely. "These are the Devourers," Dr. Minseo said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They came from beyond our galaxy 12,000 years ago. They don't just destroy civilizations, they consume them entirely. Matter, energy, even the information that something once existed." The images showed human fleets engaging the creatures. Weapons that could crack planets apart were fired at the dark shapes with no effect. Entire star systems were converted into massive guns that might slow down a single devourer for a few hours. "Our ancestors fought them for 1,000 years," Dr. Minseo continued. "Every strategy failed. Every weapon was useless. The devourers learned and adapted faster than humanity could innovate." Captain So Young Han leaned forward. "So they decided to hide. More than that, they realized that the devourers were drawn to advanced civilizations. The creatures could sense large populations, high technology levels, organized governments, so humanity chose to become invisible." The screens showed the final phase of humanity's plan, the systematic destruction of their own civilization. Cities dismantled, fleets scattered, populations relocated to primitive worlds where they would start over with stone tools and fire. "But they knew the devourers would eventually return," Dr. Minseo said. "The creatures follow a pattern, consuming galaxies in a specific order. They would circle back to this region eventually, so humanity prepared for that day." Jinho felt ice in his stomach. "They're coming back. They never left." "The devourers have been working their way through the neighboring galaxies for 12,000 years. According to the calculations in these files, they should return to our galaxy within the next 50 years. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, Captain Tae-Young-oh spoke. "Why are we awakening now then? Why not wait until they actually arrive?" The ship's AI answered that question. "Because the plan requires preparation time. Humanity's strategy was not to hide forever. It was to wait until the moment was right, then reunify and implement the final solution." "What final solution?" So Young asked. The AI paused, as if gathering courage to reveal the most classified secret of human civilization. "Your ancestors discovered that the devourers, while nearly indestructible individually, have one weakness. They are a hive mind. Every devourer is connected to every other devourer through quantum entanglement. Destroy the connection, and they become vulnerable." "How do you destroy a quantum connection on that scale?" Jinho asked. "By turning the entire galaxy into a weapon." The screens changed to show technical diagrams that made the human commanders' heads hurt. Plans for converting entire star systems into components of a massive quantum disruption field. Calculations for coordinating the energy output of billions of stars. Schematics for technology that could rewrite the basic laws of physics within a localized area. "The plan requires every intelligent species in the galaxy to work together," the AI explained. "Not just their ships and technology, but their biological signatures as well. The quantum field must be tuned to every form of consciousness in the galaxy." Dr. Minseo looked up from her notes. "There's something else. Something that explains why the plan will work." She activated another set of files, and the commanders found themselves looking at genetic analyses that made no sense at first. When humanity scattered itself across the galaxy, they didn't just abandon their technology, they seeded their genetic material throughout space. Every species that evolved intelligence after humanity's disappearance carries human DNA markers. Captain So Young stared at the data in amazement. "You're saying every intelligent species in the galaxy is part human?" "Not exactly, but human. Genetic patterns influence the development of consciousness in every species that arose after our ancestors went into hiding. It was deliberate. Humanity wanted to ensure that when the time came to activate their final weapon, they would have the biological connections needed to coordinate the consciousness of the entire galaxy. The implications were staggering. Every alien species, Every member of the Galactic Empire, every being that could think and dream and hope, was connected to humanity at the deepest genetic level. So when we activate this quantum field, Jin Ho said slowly, we're not just using human consciousness as the foundation. We're using the consciousness of every thinking being in the galaxy. Exactly. The Devourers will face not just humanity, but the unified mental power of an entire galaxy's worth of intelligent life. Meanwhile, at the capital of the Galactic Empire, Emperor Quildor was receiving his own disturbing news. His deep space monitoring stations had detected something approaching from the void between galaxies. Admiral Hyun-Woo Lim, recently promoted to command the largest human fleet ever assembled, received the warning while his ships were conducting training exercises near the galactic edge. What his sensors detected made him order an immediate return to human space. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving priority alerts from Imperial monitoring stations. They're detecting multiple large objects approaching the galaxy from extragalactic space. Hyunwoo studied the sensor readings. The objects were massive, each one larger than most moons. They moved in perfect formation, traveling faster than anything natural should be able to move. And they were, heading directly toward the galaxy. How long until they arrive, he asked. At current speed, approximately 18 months. Hyunwoo activated the quantum communication system that connected all human ships. All vessels, this is Admiral Lim. Return to designated rally points immediately. The enemy our ancestors prepared for is returning. Across human space, sleeper ships began broadcasting activation codes that had waited 12,000 years to be used. Ancient human bases hidden in asteroid fields and dead worlds came online. Weapon systems that had been disguised as natural. Phenomena powered up for the first time in millennia. But the most important activation was happening in the minds of every intelligent being in the galaxy. Without realizing it, every alien species began to feel a subtle change in their thoughts. Dreams became more vivid. Intuition became stronger. The genetic markers that humanity had planted in their ancestors began to activate. Emperor Quildor stood before the gathered representatives of every major species in the Galactic Empire. For the first time in the Empire's history, he was not speaking as their ruler, but as someone asking for help. Citizens of the galaxy, he began, we face a threat that no single species can survive alone. The monitoring stations at our galaxy's edge have detected the approach of entities that our best scientists cannot identify or understand. But there is one species among us that has faced this threat before. The assembled representatives murmured as holographic displays showed images of the approaching devourers. Humanity has knowledge that we need, technology that we cannot match, and according to our archaeologists, a plan that was designed specifically to deal with this threat. I am formally requesting that the Galactic Empire place itself under human command for the duration of this crisis. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The most powerful civilization in known space was asking to be led by the species they had always considered primitive. But as reports came in of the Devourer's approach, and as more details emerged about what humanity was offering to do, the decision became clear. Admiral Hyun-Woo Lim received a quantum-encrypted message from the Emperor himself. Admiral, the galaxy is yours to command. Tell us how to save our home. Captain So Young-han had been a military officer for 12 years before the awakening changed everything. She commanded patrol boats that protected mining ships from asteroids and space debris. Her biggest battle had been against a malfunctioning cargo drone. Now she stood on the bridge of the Rising Phoenix, a ship that her ancestors would have called a light scout vessel. To everyone else in the galaxy, it was larger and more powerful than most planetary defense fleets. Captain, we have company, reported her tactical officer Woojin Park. Imperial Patrol Fleet, 12 ships approaching fast. So Young studied the approaching vessels on her main screen. 3 months ago, the sight would have terrified her. Imperial ships were legendary for their firepower and advanced technology. Now they looked crude and primitive, like weapons made by children. Are they broadcasting any warnings or demands? She asked. Standard Imperial challenge, ma'am. They want us to identify ourselves and state our business in this system. So Young had been exploring the outer edges of what used to be called human space, mapping systems that the sleeper ships indicated had once been human territories. What she found was sobering. Every system showed signs of having once supported advanced civilization. Ruined space stations drifted in the darkness. Dead worlds showed geometric patterns that could only be the remains of massive cities. Her ancestors had not just lived in these places, they had transformed them into paradises. "Open a channel to the Imperial fleet," she ordered. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Commander Thexlar, a reptilian being with cold yellow eyes. So Young had seen his species before in Imperial broadcasts. They were considered one of the more advanced races in the Empire. "Human vessel," Thexlar said with obvious disdain. "You are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourself immediately." So Young felt a flash of anger. Imperial space? This system had been built by humans thousands of years before Thexlar's people had learned to make fire. "Commander, this is Captain So Young Han of the human vessel Rising Phoenix. We're conducting archaeological surveys in this system. We have every right to be here." Thexlar's eyes narrowed. "Archaeological surveys? This is a restricted military zone. No primitive species are allowed here without proper permits." The word primitive echoed through So Young's ship. Her crew, all of whom had spent weeks learning about their true heritage, went very quiet. "Primitive," So Young said softly. "Your species has only just learned to leave your home planet. You have no business in the deep systems. Return to your territory immediately or we will impound your vessel." So Young looked at her tactical officer. "Wu Jin, are their weapons powered?" "Yes, Captain. All 12 ships have active targeting. Systems locked onto us." So Young made a decision that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. "Computer, activate recognition protocols." Her ship's AI, which had learned to sound like her favorite teacher from childhood, responded immediately. "Recognition protocols activated, Captain. Broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies." Every screen on every Imperial ship suddenly went crazy. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. Computer systems began displaying messages in a script that no living Imperial citizen could read, but that every Imperial computer recognized. "Progenitor vessel detected," appeared in blazing letters across their displays. "Yield authority to rightful owners." "Caution, original builders present," scrolled across their navigation systems. "Warning, defer to species." "Classification. First." "Builders," flashed on their weapons controls. Commander Thexlar stared at his malfunctioning systems in horror. His weapons officer reported that their targeting systems had shut themselves down. Their navigation computer was requesting permission to serve the human vessel. Their own ship's AI was asking if it should transfer command authority to Captain So Young. "What is happening?" Thexlar shouted at his technical staff. His chief engineer, a being from a species known for their computer expertise, looked up from his console with confusion and fear. "Commander, our systems recognize the human ship as something we're supposed to obey." "That's impossible. The recognition codes are buried deep in our basic programming. I've never seen them before, but they're there. Every Imperial vessel has them. Every piece of Imperial technology has them. We're programmed to acknowledge humans as the original builders of our civilization." So Young watched the Imperial ships struggle with their own systems. She felt no satisfaction, only sadness. These beings had built their entire society on the ruins of human achievement, never knowing the truth. "Commander Thexlar," she said gently, "perhaps we should talk." Meanwhile, Dr. Min Seo-yoon was making discoveries. That explained why Imperial computers had such strange reactions to human ships. Working aboard the Eternal Dawn with access to humanity's historical archives, she had spent weeks tracing the connections between ancient human technology and the current galactic civilization. "It's all connected," she reported to Captain Jin-ho during their daily briefing. Every major technological breakthrough that allowed the current species to build interstellar civilizations came from them finding and reverse engineering human ruins. Jin-ho studied the evidence she'd compiled. star maps showing the locations of major archaeological discoveries that had advanced various species, timelines showing when each species had made their great leaps forward, technical analyses comparing current galactic technology to ancient human designs. "They're all using our technology," he said finally. "The entire galactic empire is built on pieces of human civilization that they found and copied." "Badly copied," Dr. Minseo added. "Their ships use quantum drives that are crude imitations of human fold space technology. Their computers are based on human neural network designs, but they only understand about 10% of how they actually work. Their weapons, their defenses, their life support systems, even their basic mathematics are all derived from human sources." "And they don't know it?" "How could they? The ruins they found didn't come with instruction manuals. They've been making educated guesses about how their own technology works for thousands of years." Jinho thought about the implications. What happens when they find out? Before Dr. Minseo could answer, her research was interrupted by incoming communications from human ships throughout the galaxy. The same scene was playing out everywhere. Imperial patrols encountering human vessels and having their own systems betray them. On the planet Corvus Prime, capital of one of the Empire's most powerful member species, Emperor Quildor received reports that shook him to his core. His military commanders described ships that made their best vessels look like antiques. His scientists reported technology that seemed to violate the basic principles they had spent centuries learning. But it was his chief archaeologist who delivered the news that changed everything. "Your Majesty, we've been analyzing the energy signatures of these human ships. They match patterns we've found in ruins across the galaxy. The ruins we've always assumed belonged to some long-lost precursor species." Emperor Quildor felt cold, understanding creeping through his mind. "Are you saying the ruins are human, Your Majesty? The precursor civilization that gave us faster-than-light travel, quantum computing, and advanced material science was human. We've been studying the remains of their civilization for millennia, but we never realized who built it." The Emperor stared out the window of his palace at the shining city that surrounded him. Every building, every vehicle, every piece of technology that made his civilization possible was based on human designs found in ancient ruins. "Get me a direct communication line to the human fleet," he ordered. "It seems we need to have a conversation with the people who built our world." Back aboard the Rising Phoenix, Captain So Young Han listened as Commander Thexlar tried to process what his own computers were telling him. "This is impossible," he kept repeating. "Humans are primitive. You've barely left your home system." "Commander," So Young said patiently, "what if everything your empire knows about humans is wrong? What if we're not primitive newcomers, but the people who built the civilization you've been living in all along?" The Imperial officer's face went through a range of expressions as the implications hit him: fear, confusion, and finally something that looked like wonder. "If that's true," he said slowly, "then every species in the galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." So Young smiled sadly. "We don't want repayment, Commander. We just want to come home." Captain Jinho Choi arrived 3 days later with the largest human fleet ever assembled. 5 ships, each carrying the best scientists and engineers humanity could spare. To anyone else in the galaxy, it would look like toys coming to investigate a mystery. But Jinho felt the weight of something much bigger. He floated through the docking tube connecting his flagship to the Eternal Dawn. Sujin met him at the airlock, and he could see the change in her eyes. She looked like someone who had learned a terrible secret. "Show me," he said simply. The ship's AI appeared the moment they entered the command center. Jinho had read the reports, but seeing the hologram speak in perfect Korean still made his stomach drop. "Captain Jinho Choi of the Vessel Harmony," the AI said, somehow knowing his name and ship without being told. "Your arrival was predicted. Please sit. There is much you must understand." Jinho took the chair next to Sujin. The moment he sat down, information flooded into his mind. Not words or images, but pure knowledge flowing directly into his thoughts. He saw the truth about humanity's past in seconds that felt like hours. "Stop," he gasped, holding his head. "Too much. I apologize. Your minds are not yet prepared for direct data transfer. We will use the slower method. The screens around them lit up with images. Jinho saw human cities floating among the stars, ships that looked like living creatures swimming through space, and technologies that seemed like magic. Dr. Yujin Nam, the fleet's expert on alien cultures, leaned forward in amazement. These images, they match stories from our oldest myths. The flying cities, the ships that could travel anywhere in an instant. We always thought they were just stories. They were memories, the AI explained. Broken, scattered memories passed, down through generations. Your ancestors wanted their children to remember something, even if they couldn't remember everything. The AI showed them a map of human space. Red dots marked every human colony and outpost. Then golden lines appeared, connecting the colonies to other systems. Each line represents a sleeper ship like me. We were placed throughout this region of space, waiting. Your people did not just live on Earth, they lived everywhere you see marked in gold. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of space stations, mining operations in the hearts of stars themselves. Jinho felt a chill. What happened to all of that? Where did it go? The screens changed to show something terrifying. Dark shapes moving between the stars, leaving empty space behind them. Worlds stripped clean, stars going dark, entire star systems simply gone. The Devourers. They came from beyond this galaxy, consuming everything in their path. Your ancestors fought them for 1,000 years, but there were too many. Every victory was followed by defeat. Every weapon that worked was quickly countered. Dr. Yujin Nam studied the images carefully. So they ran? No. They did something much braver and much more terrible. They chose to forget. The AI paused, as if gathering courage to tell the worst part. Your ancestors realized they could not win by fighting. The Devourers were drawn to advanced civilizations. They could sense technology, organized populations, large energy signatures. So humanity decided to become invisible. Jinho began to understand. They made themselves primitive. They scattered their populations to distant worlds. They destroyed their cities, dismantled their fleets, erased their records. They used their most advanced technology to change themselves, removing the knowledge from their own minds. In a single generation, the greatest civilization this galaxy had ever seen became simple farmers and hunters. The screens showed human colonies across the galaxy, all of them starting over with nothing but basic tools. Earth was just one of hundreds of worlds where humans began again. But they left us, the AI continued. Ships programmed to sleep until humanity returned to space. We carry everything they gave up. Their knowledge, their technology, their dreams of the stars. Sujin spoke quietly. Why now? Why are you awakening now? Because the time of hiding is over. Your people have independently rediscovered space travel. You are beginning to spread among the stars again. That was the signal we waited for. Captain Jinho felt a terrible understanding creeping into his mind. The Devourers, they're coming back. Yes. Meanwhile, at Galactic Empire headquarters, Fleet Admiral Kethma stared at reports that made no sense. His scout ships had reached the sector where the energy signature appeared. What they found challenged everything the Empire thought it knew. The readings confirm it, Admiral, reported his intelligence officer. The energy source is artificial, it's a ship. What species? That's the problem, sir. It's in human space, but humans don't have ships like this. According to our files, they can barely leave their home system. Kethmos pulled up every piece of information the Empire had about humans. Primitive. Weak. Harmless. Their ships were crude metal boxes that could barely travel between planets. There must be another explanation. Maybe the humans found some ancient alien wreck. That's what we thought, sir. But our deep scans show the ship is not just functional, it's actively communicating with other objects throughout human space. At least 40 similar energy signatures have appeared in the last week. The Admiral's confidence wavered. 40 ships with power readings that exceeded most Imperial vessels. In human space? Get me a direct line to Central Intelligence. And prepare a full battle fleet. Whatever is happening out there, I want us ready for it. Back aboard the Eternal Dawn, Dr. Yujin Nam was studying historical records that the ship's AI had shared. What she found made her hands shake. Jinho, you need to see this. These records, they show that humans didn't just live in this galaxy, they built it. The captain looked at the data she had compiled, star maps showing human construction projects, planets that had been moved into better orbits, entire star systems that had been modified to support life. The galaxy we see today, the one ruled by the Empire, is literally built on the bones of human civilization. Every major trade route, every habitable planet, every piece of technology that allows faster-than-light travel, it was all designed and built by our ancestors. Jinho sat back in his chair, overwhelmed. We're not joining galactic civilization, we created it. And then we walked away from it, Sujin added. We let other species find our ruins and build their own civilizations using scraps of what we left behind. The AI's hologram nodded sadly. Your ancestors hoped that when the time came to reveal the truth, the galaxy would be grateful for humanity's sacrifice. They hoped the other species would understand why humans had to disappear. Will they? Jinho asked. That depends on how they react when they realize that every achievement of their civilizations is based on technology humanity abandoned as too primitive to bother taking into hiding. Outside the ship, space began to ripple as more sleeper ships awakened across human space, each one carrying enough knowledge and technology to reshape the galaxy. The age of human hiding was over. Admiral Vextar's 4 eyes moved across the glowing screens in the central command of the Galactic Empire. His green skin reflected the blue light as he reviewed the daily reports. For 300 years he had done this same job. Every day was the same. Every species was catalogued. Every ship was known. The Empire had rules about everything. They knew which species could build what kind of ships. They knew who was dangerous and who was not. Humans were not dangerous. The files said so clearly. Tier 7, basic chemical rockets. Recently left their home planet. No threat. Vexatar almost laughed. Humans flew around in metal cans powered by burning fuel. Their biggest ships were smaller than his personal shuttle. They had just reached their neighboring planets a few decades ago. Children could build better toys. Far away from the Empire's shiny capital, Commander Sujin Kim floated inside her small human ship called the New Soul. She pressed her face against the cold window and stared at the strange object ahead. Her crew of 12 had been exploring this empty star system for 2 weeks. They found nothing until now. Captain, you need to see this, said Dongwoo Park from his engineering station. His voice was tight with worry. Sujin pushed herself through the narrow hallway to the main deck. The ship was cramped like all human vessels. Every meter mattered when you could barely afford to leave your home system. What am I looking at? She asked. Haiwan Li, their scientist, pointed at the massive shape on the screen. It's a ship, but it's huge. 10 times bigger than anything humans have ever built. The object was dark and silent. It looked ancient, with smooth curves that seemed almost alive. Strange symbols covered its hull. No human had ever seen writing like that. Any life signs? Sujin asked. Nothing. It's been drifting here for who knows how long, Dongwoo replied. Sujin made the decision that would change everything. We're going aboard. 2 hours later, she floated through the airlock connecting their tiny ship to the massive derelict. The air inside the alien vessel was breathable. Emergency lights flickered on as they moved through corridors wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. These walls, whispered Heewon, running her gloved hand along the smooth surface. They're not metal. They're something else. Something that feels warm. The team moved deeper into the ship. Everything was clean, as if someone had just stepped out for a moment. Control panels with unknown symbols lined the walls. Screens showed information in languages none of them could read. They reached what looked like a command center. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. In the center sat a chair that seemed made for someone human-sized. This doesn't make sense, Dongwoo muttered. Who builds a ship this advanced but makes the controls for beings our size? Sujin approached the central chair. As soon as her boots touched the platform beneath it, the entire room came alive. Lights blazed on. Screens everywhere began showing images and text. A low humming sound filled the air. Then a voice spoke. It was calm, warm, and speaking perfect Korean. "Welcome home, descendants. I am the eternal dawn. I have been waiting." The three humans froze. Sujin's heart hammered in her chest. Did that thing just speak Korean? Processing vocal patterns. Identity confirmed. You are human. You have achieved interstellar flight. Awakening protocols are now active. A hologram appeared in front of them. It looked like a human woman, but her clothes were strange, and her eyes held knowledge from ages past. "Who are you?" Sujin managed to ask. "I am the ship's intelligence. I was created by your people 12,000 years ago. I have been waiting for humans to find me and reclaim what was lost." Haiwan laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "Our people? 12,000 years ago, humans were living in caves. That is what you were taught to believe. That is what was necessary for survival. But you are ready now to learn the truth." The hologram gestured, and the screens around them showed images that made no sense. Humans in advanced cities among the stars. Fleets of ships like this one, but filled with life and purpose. Worlds covered in structures that reached toward the sky. Your ancestors built an empire that spanned this entire region of the galaxy. They created technology that the current galactic powers still cannot match. But something went wrong. Something so terrible that they chose to disappear rather than face it. Dongwu found his voice. "What happened to them?" "They became you. They scattered themselves across the galaxy, hiding their children on primitive worlds. They wiped their own memories and started over as simple hunters and farmers. But they left us behind. Ships like me, waiting in the dark for the day when humans would return to the stars." Sujin felt dizzy. This is impossible. If humans were so advanced, where's the proof? Where are the ruins? Hidden, protected, waiting for you to be ready. And now you are. The ship's AI smiled. "Your species has just taken its first real steps into space. That was the signal we were programmed to wait for." The screens changed, showing star maps, with hundreds of blinking lights scattered across the galaxy. Each light is a ship like me. Each ship contains the knowledge and tools your ancestors left behind. As I awaken, so do they. The human fleet is coming back to life, and the galaxy will remember who really built its greatest wonders. Back at Galactic Command, alarms began sounding. Vextar rushed to the main display as his subordinates called out readings that made no sense. "Admiral, massive energy signature detected in Sector 7741. It's unlike anything in our databases." "Show me," Vextar ordered. The screen displayed a sensor reading that made his blood run cold. The energy output was greater than a star. Nothing natural could produce such power. "Could it be a weapon test by the Corvani Republic?" asked his aide. Vextar studied the reading. The signature was clean, controlled, purposeful. "No, this is technology. Advanced technology. But according to our records, that sector contains only primitive human colonies." He pulled up the human files again. "Tier 7. Chemical rockets, no threat. Send a scout fleet. I want to know what's really out there." As the orders went out, Vextar couldn't shake the feeling that something very important had just changed in the galaxy. The Empire's neat catalogs and careful rankings suddenly felt less certain. In the depths of space, aboard the Eternal Dawn, Sujin Kim sat in a chair built by her ancestors and tried to understand that everything she knew about humanity was wrong.